Welcome back to Johnny Reads. As you can see from the title of the video, today's going to be Top 5 Wednesday required reading, which of course is going to mean assigned reading. Now just a disclaimer, these are not going to be 5 books that I personally was assigned when I was in school, but these will be 5 books that are commonly assigned. So going into the very first book that I want to talk about is going to be Diary of a Young Girl, which of course is Anne Frank's diary. And I don't think there's really much explanation that needs to go into this one. I would say, for me, the perspective of a child during World War II, Nazi Germany, occupation of Nazi Germany of almost all of Western Europe, that's the main thing for me. And especially now that we're 70, 75 years or so post that period, there's a lot of people who obviously were not alive at the time, and a lot of that generation, whether they were young, old, or somewhere in the middle, have already died. Next up is going to be To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This was also a book that I was not assigned in school, and this one, I think it just, for me, once again, it just kind of encompasses the struggle in the deep south of the United States in the post-Civil War era. And the next up is going to be Night by Elie Wiesel. And so I coupled this with Anne Frank's diary because that gives you the perspective of a child, even though she was in hiding for most of World War II. So she didn't write of the atrocities that she would have experienced firsthand, because we all know she died once she was taken to the concentration camp. Now this tells the story of Elie Wiesel in Auschwitz, and he was there for a year towards the end of the war. And in these very few pages, as you can see, very thin book, he somehow manages to capture the brutality, the inhumane, and just the atrocities that the Germans were committing. The next one, and these last two are books that I was assigned when I was in school, but next up is going to be Dracula by Bram Stoker. And Dracula, I've held this book in such high regard since I read it. And I love my copy. It's not anything super fancy, but I just love it. And for me, this book, it's the epitome of good versus evil, but also man versus monster. And I know that there are others in history that probably would meet that criteria too, like Frankenstein being one of them, though I haven't read Frankenstein personally. But this just epitomizes that. And when I'm sitting here talking about it, I'm thinking of Mina, I'm thinking of Jonathan, I'm thinking of the Count, thinking of Lucy, it all just comes back to me. And this is just one of those books that when you read it, and as you read it, you're just like, they have to defeat him. They have to. The last 115 or so years since it was published, 118 years or so, for me, when looking at the vampire genre, whether it's movies, whether it's TV shows, whether it's books, I always see so much of this book in current works, whether it's something that was written after this but before now, or if it's something contemporary being written today. And so that's what I love about it. This just seems to influence so many people when it comes to that genre. And Dracula, I think Dracula is going to live on for a very long time. And the last one, and oddly enough, this is the only book that I've read by him, but it's Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And I actually was assigned this book before my very first semester in college, literally that summer before. And the reason I think this is a really, really good one is that period when it was assigned for me, just going into college, that entering that new chapter of your life, kind of becoming a young adult. And this just tells a story of success can come in so many different ways, but it's very apparent in his writing that though yes, it can be in so many different ways and different people, different backgrounds, all of that, but what seems to be the commonality of all of them is that it's so much work to get there. And especially in today, 2021, there's a whole lot of online of get rich quick kind of things, and not only being rich but just other success, find success very fast, and it seems like you're kind of jumping the line and not really putting in the work. Outliers just shows that that's not going to be the case. You're going to have to put in the work to really be successful. And I think that period when it was assigned for me, just going into college, that is probably the ideal period to go ahead and read this book. That's all I have for you today. Now, at this point, I'm not certain on who is actually running Top 5 Wednesday anymore, but I will link to the Goodreads group in the description. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at some of the topics going forward, definitely please do. But what are some of your assigned reading books that have really stayed with you, whether it's high school, college, or middle school? These are some of mine, and I think all 5 of these should continue to be assigned reading in schools going forward. But I would also say there's a lot of books today and in previous years that are still being assigned, most notably Shakespeare. Please, I wish that we would not assign Shakespeare as much as we do. But there's a lot of books that are assigned that don't really agree with them being assigned, because I don't really feel like you're getting as much from that as we want. But let me know some of yours in the comments, and I'll see you next time.